Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, trader Steve here at Logic FX Trading, and welcome to another lesson in our Competent Trader series. Today we're going to be looking at identification, and basically what we're going to do is we've already looked at in the basic building blocks series on Elliott wave. We looked at all the different types of wave and structure that we can get according to Elliott, how he breaks down a price chart into different structures and has his rules and guidelines that kind of says, well, if you've got that, then the next thing should be this, and that's how we're able to tell what should happen next. That's our, once we've identified what we've got, we interpret what's happening or what structure each individual wave or smaller structures making, and from that we can interpret what's going to happen next, or we interpret what we have, and then we make a forecast. So in other words, if we had a situation where we had perhaps price had come down in this direction, and we were expecting, because of the bigger structure, we were expecting price to move up to here, and we had this sort of structure, we would be interpreting this as a impulse, even though it's not complete, and our extrapolation or our forecast would be whenever price starts to move up, it should move up to that sort of level to complete our 5-wave impulse. So that's kind of what we do. We identify what we've got, we interpret what the structure is, and then we forecast where price is going to go next. So it kind of gives us a template to work to. And you often hear me saying that it's not painting by numbers, which means that it's not just laid out for us. We've got to work it out for ourselves. That's what makes it interesting, and also what makes it difficult. But if you can become good at doing it, then you can trade to your heart's content, so long as you have the patience and the trading strategy to get it right. So what we're going to do in this section is, I'm not sure if this is going to just be one lesson or whether we'll split it down into different lessons. I think we'll probably split it down, because as we did in the building blocks series, your identification is going to be basically looking for each structure within a price chart so that we know what they look like. So we'll start today with an impulse, or we'll start in this lesson with an impulse, and we might even do diagonals here, and then we'll go on and we'll do our flat corrections, our zigzags, our doubles and our triples, and we'll work our way through it. So okay, so we're starting with an impulse is a 5-wave structure, as we know, that where the 4th wave does not encroach into the 1st wave, and it moves up in this way. We'll not get it any more complex than that for now, although it would be very, very rare that we would just see a simple one that looks like that, and that's the whole purpose of this particular set of lessons, is so that we know what we're looking at whenever we see it. So what we'll do is we'll take our little template there, and we'll go backwards out to here, and then we'll say, well, there's our template. Where are these things that look like that? Well, I can see quite a few immediately. That's an impulse. That's an impulse. That's an impulse. That's an impulse. That whole thing's an impulse. Within that, there's an impulse. Within that, there's an impulse. There's another impulse. And you can see that, and there's another impulse coming down there. Although that one may be a diagonal, guys. Impulsive waves and diagonals. Motive waves. They're all motive waves, guys. Let's call it that, so that we don't get mixed up. And in between those, we get joining sections like this. This is a correction. There's a correction in there. There's a correction there. At the moment, this is going through a correction. There's a big correction going on there. But within that correction, yet again, because this is daily, anytime you see a sharp move like that, it'll be an impulsive move. But obviously, it'll be on a smaller time scale. These little ones are smaller time scale than, say, the likes of that. So that's what an impulse looks like. There's another impulse coming up there. So how do we know, how do we identify them if we go in and look at one individual one? So let's go and look at the one that we look at often. And the reason that I go over and over the same one is because it helps to learn if you see the same thing over and over again. Right. This impulse here, as opposed to that correction, this correction, that correction. This impulse here has 5 waves in it, and it actually is more than 5 waves because obviously it's a daily time scale. But if we just take it simply and we go, well, where's our 5 waves? Well, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and there's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 5-wave impulse. Okay, let's go and look at another one. If we zoom in on this and we go, there's our last leg, that last leg there. Well, is that a 5-wave impulse? Well, of course it is. Let's have a look at it. We'll color a different color. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that one is what you would call truncated. And don't forget that 5th waves can be truncated, which basically means they don't go much further than the bottom of your 3rd wave. It comes back up and it comes down. That's a truncated 5th wave. But you can see it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what about all the little waves in the middle? Why aren't we counting those? Well, we have to count waves of a similar degree of magnitude. So what does that mean? Well, we've covered this before, but let's go back to our bigger time scale here. And what we do is, as we're analysing, as things are moving on a day-to-day basis, hour-by-hour basis, remember this is on a daily, we're analysing the whole thing, up and down and up and down and up and down. And we've got little impulses in there and little pullbacks and impulses. There's a little impulse there. There's a pullback, which is possibly, it's impulsive, therefore it looks like a zigzag. There's an impulsive move, an impulsive move, an impulsive move, an impulsive move. That is also zigzag. Why? Because there are impulsive moves within there. Possibly they're diagonals. There's an impulsive move, and that one's quite clear to see. If you look at this, we say that's the bottom, then that's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we look at this one here, what have we got? If we say that's the 5 for the bottom, it's a 4, 3, 2, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the bottom. But remember, that 4th wave there isn't the 4th wave of the whole thing. It's only the 4th wave of the 3rd wave. Remember, each wave can be divided down into subwaves. Now, then you say, well, where's the subwaves in that one? Guys, if you went right down to the 15-minute time scale or the 1-hour time scale, you would be able to count 5 waves in there. But the point of it isn't to get too caught up in counting 5 waves, because sometimes they just move. And when you just get a movement like that, you don't need to count all of the waves. When it's a bigger movement like this, where we have something of the order of, 800. Unfortunately, I can't see that, guys. I need my glasses. Let me have a look. 672. Call it 600. Call it 600 pips. That's a big move when we get into the the 1 hour time scale. This move down here took a year to happen, guys. So that's our big impulse coming down. So how do we then, if this is happening in front of our eyes, how do we work out what's going on there? Well, as we know, waves within a bigger structure can break down into smaller structure, smaller waves. They're fractal. So then what we have within this is a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. And then within that 3rd wave, we've got another wave. Let's make it purple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then within each of those, you'll be able to count waves. Now, there is a slight anomaly in this, and it's that wave there, because it doesn't fit. But that's just something, guys, that sometimes it doesn't work out exactly. That's why we say it isn't painting by numbers. It's not exact. It's not an exact science. But whenever these things are moving, whenever they're coming down like this, more or less you will get 5 waves. Most times you will get 5 waves. If we were to analyse that and analyse it and analyse it, you may well come up with a count in there that gives this thing absolutely correctly right. That's not what's important. What's important is recognising what we've got, recognising whenever we go from here that we've had our first and our second wave, and therefore, because of what we know about impulses, the rules of the impulse are that the rules basically are the third wave is never the shortest and is often the longest, which obviously in this case it is the longest. The fifth wave is often the 127 extension of the third wave, and if we take our fib extension tool and we put that from there to there, and we put a line across there at the 127, guys, that was an exact to the 127. The fifth wave was an exact 127 extension of that third wave, guys. That's why when it came down, whenever we were analysing at the time, that I said, guys, this could be over, because it hit our 127. When it pulled back there, I said, guys, this could be over. Okay, right, so there are a lot of things there. That's what we're looking for. If we want to look at another one on a lower time scale, we could look at this impulse here. And yet again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, it's possible that this is also part of a bigger wave. And we change that colour to, say, light blue, where that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With that being the third wave in the middle, and that whole thing being the 5 wave structure coming up. This is our A, B, C correction, and possibly this is going off, but I suspect that this is becoming A, B, C correction, but it's becoming a more complex correction, and we'll deal with those in another video. This one we're just looking at identifying impulses. And here's our impulse there. We counted that one, and within it we had our 5 wave structure as well. So that's basically what we're talking about when we're talking about impulsive waves, guys, and when we're trying to identify them. Now, as we know, we'll look at this in interpretation, but there are certain places that we expect certain waves to happen, and as I say, that will then come in interpretation where we're looking for something to say if it's developing, and we then know we can have this or we can have this. If it looks a certain way, then we know we don't have that one, therefore it must be this one. This is how taking our knowledge of what Elliott says can happen in certain places, what the rules are, what the guidelines are, can give us an idea whenever we've got something that looks a bit like this and we're there and we don't know how it's going to pan out, but we know from whatever's going on over here, we know that we should be getting a pullback. We've had a 1 and a 2, and then we'd be saying, well, if that's a 1 and a 2, we could get something like that if it's going to be a 3 wave structure, but that doesn't look right. And therefore from there, and because of the distance down we expected to come, let's watch out for an impulsive move. And where would we be aiming it for? Well, we'd be aiming it for somewhere around the bottom of the 4th wave, for starters. But given how far up it had moved, we would be saying, well, we could get a 168 or a 50% retracement of that whole thing if this is our pullback or correction of that whole thing. And therefore what we would do would say there's the start of the move up, How far back have we come to that 127? That is 50%. That's possibly enough, but when we're up here, we're saying, well, we're going to aim for the 32.8, which is the bottom of there, but it's possibly not enough, but we'll see how it comes down. And when it got to there, it was being impulsive, guys. And therefore we said, you know what, this is an impulsive wave, therefore it's not over. We're going to get a fourth, we'll get a fifth, we'll see where it finishes, and we'll see what the whole thing looks like. And as it is, so far this isn't complete, but as it is, as the rules tell us, if we have a 5-wave structure there, we should get a 3-wave structure there, and we should get another 5-wave structure down. That's what the theory tells us. Bringing this whole correction down, perhaps to the 61.8, perhaps a little bit deeper. I'd be more inclined to bring it down to the 61.8. So this may be a little bit sharper, a little bit quicker than what that one was. Although that was quite sharp. Although it did take a year, guys. That whole move took a year. Okay, so that's our little introduction to what an impulse, how to identify an impulse on a live chart. Let's just go and look at the one we identified earlier as a diagonal. Now, diagonals can take different formats and different shapes, guys. But let's just look at a couple here. This is a pretty straightforward diagonal here. So we'll look at that one. We have a 1, we have a pullback, we have a 2, we have a pullback, which comes into the end of 1, and then we have a 5th wave coming down. You can, you can see that is a diagonal, guys. So how does this work out? Well, initially on the lower time scale, we've had a beautiful 5-wave. That'll be a 5-wave impulse. And then we get a pullback. And then we get another push down. So that initially might say, well, you know what, that's a zigzag. But then when we get this, and it stops not long after it's come into there and pushes on down, then we know we've got ourselves a diagonal, guys. And as that was developing, we would have been looking at it, we would have been measuring it, and we would have been saying, what have we got here? Well, that looks like a diagonal to me. Someone else might say it's something else. It could be a zigzag from a point of view of you have a zigzag there, you have a connector, and you have maybe another zigzag there. It's possibly a double zigzag. And then you say, well, then what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to there. Well, then there's another diagonal. If that one's a zigzag, and at the end of the day, guys, it doesn't matter what you call them. The whole point of the name of the thing is to distinguish one type of movement from another. This is impulsive, and that's what's important about it. Is it corrective impulsive? Well, possibly it is, but I assure you that this move here, and it's broken that bottom, this move here, each of these are very, very impulsive move, guys. This is a diagonal. Someone else might say this is a running flat, but for me it's a diagonal. And why is it a diagonal? Because it's the first move up of this, of this, of this, of this. That's a 5 move up, guys. Okay, I don't want to overcomplicate it at this point, but that'll do us with a diagonal and an impulse. And next we'll go on and we'll start looking for simple examples of, let's just draw that diagonal in while we're here. So it's starting from there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we get this correction, A, B, C correction. And you can see how that first wave's come quite deep. The 4th wave has come down into the first wave, and then with our next wave up. That's a diagonal, guys. Where is it? It's in the position. It's in the 1 position, first wave. So it's a leading diagonal. Then we have this, quite a complex correction that went on for over 2 years, guys. And then we got that. So from mid 2014 through to mid 2015 for a year, the dollar just went up and up and up and up and up. Guys, have you any idea how many times you could have doubled or trebled your account in that move? Okay, that'll do for the first part of this. We'll move on to the next part. Okay, guys, hope that helped. Bye for now.